Hello, you've found Route 664, the road to human kindness. I'm your host, Les Winston, and I am the national spokesperson for socialsecharity.org. That is a website that is a project of the Endow America Network Foundation, and this is all about being kind, philanthropy, helping to change things through your own stewardship, leadership, financial wealth. And also your financial well-being. This is the age of financialism, I call it, where financial well-being of the individual is very important. It's not the economics of the nation or the world in general. It's your own individualist, your own individual financial position, your own financial well-being. And if you can strive to do that properly with good direction, it can help you be healthier, because we found out that being kind is also healthy for you. And also it really reflects what we are as a nation. We are not kind because we're rich. We're rich because we're kind. And learning about philanthropy and learning how to use philanthropic tools is part of what we want you to get out of our programs. Route 664 is about Section 664 of the tax code and social charity. So my next guest is the epitome of all that. He is the assistant professor of philanthropy and creative director at the American College of Financial Services, a good friend of mine, Phil Cubeta. He joins us now live. Thank you, Phil.
Les,
for joining us today. How are you?
Good to see you. Yeah, I'm good.
Good to see you too. We've talked in the past about a lot of things. The Chartered Advisor in Philanthropy designation and the American College and the profession itself. But I know that you're on a different project, a little bit of a different project now, and it's not directed so much to the advisor, but maybe to the consumer. So could you fill us in a little bit about what you're doing?
Yeah, well, I think that's kind of an important point, because people who are trying to be kind, I love your tagline, the route to human kindness. You know, it's really about love. And what do you love? You love hopefully you love yourself, but you love your family, you love your community. You want to be constructive about that. And legacy planning, estate planning, financial planning should all support that, right? They should all support that. We all know that. But I think my life experience tells me that if the person whose legacy planning is being done doesn't take the initiative, no advisor can help them. I mean, advisors don't know what you're trying to accomplish until you let them know. And a lot of times the husband and wife aren't totally on the same page either, as you well know, Les. It takes a long time. And honestly, I don't think most people can afford to pay an advisor to sit with them while they hash this out. And it's probably been your life experience too, Les, right?
Yes.
So they get to an impasse and they get snagged and snarled. And then days, months, years go by and the paperwork doesn't get signed and so forth. So what we've done at the American College is, based on all the experience we've had working with advisors on legacy planning, is put together a short course to prepare ordinary people to talk to their advisors about their legacy plan, to come in prepared to drive the process to the conclusions they want, so advisors can support that process. And to me, that makes the difference between a good plan and a bad plan. A good plan is the one you need and want and you ask for. A bad plan is one the advisor assumes you want. I mean, it's absolutely obvious. But, getting the courage and the time to actually go prepared has always been a challenge. I mean, that has always been the challenge.
Yes, it is. And for example, we recommend that individuals have a revocable living trust. And so in order to get to the point where you can have a revocable living trust drawn, you have to have information on the individual. So there's a set of forms that are filled out that the individual can give their details about what they own and where they live and who their family is and so on. But there is nothing yet that I've seen that works where professionals have insight into what the individual is really all about.
That is so true. It is so true.
So does what you're talking about, does it lead to that?
It does. It starts with a question, basically, who are you? What do you believe in? What do you love besides yourself and your family? What are your values? Really reflecting on the kind of person you are and the kind of impact you want to have. That's the first step. And then it asks you to consider, do you have enough for yourself over your lifetime as your basic retirement plan to make sure, because you can't give it away. You can't be so kind. You give all your stuff away and then you become an object of charity yourself. So you got to be sure you can have
No,
enough for yourself. And that's financial plan. What you and I would call financial planning or retirement
right.
planning. And the next step is where are my material goods going to go when I die? Right. And that turns out to be not so easy. Your first blush is say, well, I'll go to my wife if you're married. But you
Hmm.
start getting down to how much to each kid. And
Hmm.
as between your kids and your charity, I mean, you've been there, you people go into a spin about that. And there are worksheets to help them work that through. What is the appropriate amount for the errors? Will there be anything left over? If there is, where do I want it to go? And then thinking about how much is the right amount for the charities you support, right? That's the third thing. And will there
Hmm.
be anything there? And
Hmm.
should I start now being kind or wait until later because I don't quite know if I have enough for myself? Do you know what I mean? That if I
Hmm.
give it away now, I won't have it to retire on. So that's the third thing. And the fourth thing is how can I bring the money from whatever charitable tools, the CRTs and the donor advised funds and the foundations, all the bequests, all the tools that advisors will put in place.
Hmm.
How can I, at some point, that money's got to come out of those tools and go to a specific nonprofit to actually have impact in the community, right? It can't just stay there
Hmm.
forever. It's going to come out. So, what nonprofits? How will that money be used? What impact do you expect? What reporting back? So, it walks you through that thought process. And so that when you go to your nonprofits and when you go to your advisors, you're much more likely to get what you want by clarifying what you want before you go.
Now you're talking to the consumer. You're talking
That's
about not.
exactly right. That's
Yeah,
exactly
you're
right.
you're talking to my listener, to the person
I'm
that's
talking
listening right
directly
now,
to them. I'm trying to give them a heads up, really.
right?
Advisors want to serve you, but in order
Hmm.
to do that, you've got to give them clear signals about how much to each kid, how much to the charities, at what point. And almost nobody is clear on that.
Well, here's the rub a little bit, and that is we're trying to focus. When I work with an individual and I do this advising work, I try to get them to focus, and focusing is really difficult without the proper tools. The focusing tools
It's so hard.
sometimes require an individual doing the questioning because a lot of people aren't self-starters. They don't necessarily do that. How do you move them in that direction? Is that
Uh, Right, but
is that
that's
where
part
you
of what
tie
this is
in the
meant to do.
professional advisor? Yeah.
I think it's both and, Les. I think it's both and. I don't think it's a good idea for people to do their own planning. I think, in fact, that's a fatal mistake. I think it's absolutely fatal. The number of self-done plans that work out is insignificant. They all mess up from one way or another. But at the same time, there is some work that has to be done at the kitchen table rather than the planning table. Husband
Hmm.
and wife have got to be on the same page, and that's the kitchen table work. And you can't pay an advisor enough to do it with you. You could sit with them for the 6 times they meet to discuss these things for 3 hours each, but you couldn't afford to, and they couldn't afford to pay you. So, that getting clear what you're trying to accomplish, and reaching consensus. Yes, they will need a nudge, and yes, they'll need help when they're clear, but there's also some work they've got to do themselves.
Okay. But would you recommend using a professional philanthropic advisor when they're available?
Definitely. I think it's both and. I think there's work you have to do yourself at the kitchen table, and then you need a good advisor to work you through the implications of that, what tools will support it, and how to set it up.
Okay.
You need both. You definitely and frankly, you probably need somebody to nudge you.
Yeah, that's the nudge. You got to be nudged.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I agree with that. I think that you got to get people to. It's not just the planning; it's also the implementation. There's a
Yeah.
lot of things that go into this. So,
Mhm.
uh,
Yeah.
we certainly we're a proponent of the professional philanthropic advisor
Absolutely,
fund.
of course. We
One of our
definitely
objectives is to increase the number.
of
And
course.
I did want to talk to you just a little bit about what's going on currently because there is a lot of philanthropy going on where people want to support a foreign country. They want to support activity that's going on there, and that is like an instant focusing arrangement. Do you have any advice for people as to how they should approach that?
Well, that probably is a good it depends on how much and in what way, but I think that is a place where you do wanna get good advice because you can't deduct gifts that are made to a foreign charity unless you go through certain hoops. In other words, you can give to a US charity that supports foreign work, for example, that's easy to do. But if you wanna give direct to, foreign organizations, there are some tests you have to meet, and it's probably good to work through an intermediary like a community foundation or a national fund that does that can bless the gift. But,
Mhm.
there are plenty of US charities that are supporting that foreign work.
When you say it depends on the amount, why?
Well, if you wanted to make a big gift direct to some organization in the Ukraine, for example, it would be you would have the wealth to actually hire somebody to help you do that right, to make sure it's checking all the boxes. If you wanna give $50, $100, $1,000, you probably wanna work through an organization in the US that does work there because
Okay.
it's simpler.
I guess it's Phil Cubeta. Phil is a guru in the world of philanthropy and philanthropic planning, and great new idea using the work of Mark Weber uh,
Mhm.
and somebody who we've interviewed on the program.
Yeah.
He's written a book that people can use and has actually created a consumer course that you can get involved in. How do they find out more about that, Phil?
I gave you the link, and I assume you'll forward it to your listeners, and I hope they'll find it of interest, and hope they'll use it.
Okay.
And it's
All
free.
right.
We're not selling anything here. This is really for the good of the field. It comes back down
No,
to
I
kindness.
understand that.
Yep,
This is
yep,
strictly this is
yep,
philanthropic. It's nonprofit. It's no
exactly,
there's no money to be made here. This is strictly for the world to be a better place and make you kinder.
exactly. It's
Thank
another
you for
step
your
on the road to human kindness.
Yep, great. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you. All
I
right.
love that. Thank you for
Yep.
joining us this morning on Route 664, the road to human kindness. My next guest is directly involved with kindness, and I thought it would be a really good interlude for you to get an idea of how the feelings that you have are normal. If you want to be helpful and help people who are having problems right now, it's all about kindness as well. So here's my interview that I did with Jaclyn. We interviewed this a couple of days ago, but very much on points. Please join us now with Jaclyn. And my next guest is someone who has dealt with our favorite topic here on Route 664, the road to human kindness, and it is kindness. My guest is Jaclyn Lindsey. Jaclyn is the co-founder and CEO of kindness.org. Okay, you want to make the world kinder
Yes, sir, I do.
and gentler? How are you doing so far?
It's a big mission. It's something that affects literally every human in the world. I genuinely believe that and know that. And we're just at the beginning. We're just a few years into this. So I can say thus far, it's been quite a journey, but we still, of course, have a lot of work in front of us to do.
And you're not just talking about kindness locally, you're talking about kindness on a worldwide basis.
Precisely.
And we, of course, people, when they listen to this, they're going to say kindness is probably the last thing that anybody in the world is thinking about. But that's how you change things, isn't it? It's the way you're going to change the world, Jaclyn.
I started this organization with the conviction that if we could lead with science, data, evidence as a means to inform our programs and recommendations, we could more quickly gain the trust and intrigue of the general public. What we've seen is that kindness being at the forefront of humanity, of choice, of cooperation, of caring well for people, it is the lever we need to move the needle towards problem solving and social change. When we can operate by choosing kindness for all of those around us, both near and far, it is the tip of the iceberg to the ripple effect that can happen.
So it's been said that America is not kind because it's rich. It's rich because it's kind. And the idea is that people benefit greatly by having the feelings of kindness. Have you seen scientific evidence of that? Is there proof that you have to show that people, if they're kind and giving, are actually healthier?
Absolutely. There's an immense amount of research, a big body of research that validates the role kindness plays on our social, emotional, physical, mental well-being. Just a few examples: kindness has a significant effect on the individual happiness and well-being of the kind actor, if you will, the person doing the kindness. There's research that shows kindness is the most effective way to improve the subjective well-being of a closed group or community. We've seen it impact blood pressure, anxiety. The list is very long. You're really talking about something that's an antidote to so many of our challenges. And I want to be clear, I don't think it's a silver bullet, but I think it's an essential ingredient that we have to be talking about.
How do you introduce that ingredient? How do you enter into a discussion with somebody regarding that, the fact that kindness is important?
Well, the way that we think about it is we start with what are the gaps? What are the unknowns? So for example, what is the real benefit of choosing kindness? When you're told, go smile at a stranger, buy a coffee for somebody, some of those smaller acts, if you will. Why? What meaning does it really have? What impact does it really have? So we've actually created the world's first database that has measured the cost and benefit of more than 1,000 acts of kindness, and we're just at the beginning stages of this research. It's incredibly groundbreaking because the public at large is helping to inform why these acts matter, what benefit they really have, and it allows us to better know how to guide people with what to do. We take our research and then we apply it into what we kind of call real world tools and applications. So we have bespoke programming for children. We're in, hundreds and hundreds of classrooms around the world, serving kindergarten through 8th grade with skills for social emotional learning, leveraging our research. We have tools for workplace kindness. We're just starting to enter into community kindness where you live. So the more we understand about the benefit, the impact, the more smartly we can develop solutions that are easily scaled. So
in the process of working with an individual and the individual's kindness, as opposed to the kindness of a huge organization, you're dealing with individuals to make the individual understand more how kindness, how they can change the way they view the world through kindness. Would that be clear?
So I would say our site, kindness.org, certainly can be a mechanism for which an individual can learn more about the benefits of kindness, the research, and then receive act ideas of what they can do on an individual level. I feel that real impact starts with one to many. So we actually think about working with people, we call them change makers. We're trying to work with the people who is not a skeptic. We're not trying to convince them. They believe, like us, kindness is one of the most powerful tools in solving problems. So we work through them, and then they're helping to amplify it out to their communities, their networks, whether they're a teacher in a classroom, they're a leader in the workplace. We're not trying to convince them. So we are collaborating with them in that way. And we really see ourselves as the hub, trying to provide the educational and inspirational resources necessary to move the needle. But I wouldn't say that we're specifically trying to do the one-to-one, because that would take a very long time to really reach real big impact, wide scale.
Have you written a book or anything that the public can take away from our interview today? Is there some place that they can find information about what you're doing so that they can easily get involved in kindness?
Yes, absolutely. So if you go to kindness.org/get started, that is our resource page. It has everything anyone would need to learn more about kindness, whether they're looking at it from a scientific lens or they're looking for content, toolkits. We really try and keep that current with all of our latest offerings. We do actually have a book that I published with one of my co-founders in 2020. It's called Be Kind, A Year of Kindness Week by Week. And we take the reader on a journey through 52 vignettes that include a scientific fact or learning combined with a real story of someone from around the world on the way kindness has shown up in their lives and the impact it's had. And then we give an act recommendation for people to go do. Our research director is also in the middle of writing his book, How to Be Good, and that will be released later this year.
What is it called?
How to Be Good.
How to Be Good.
Yes.
So, I mean, hard to believe that we have to teach people to be kind. It's hard to believe that people need to learn how to be this way. Why is that?
Yeah, excellent question. Okay, so since birth, every human has the capacity for kindness. Children as young as 2 years old are exhibiting empathy from a very early age. It is a natural tendency, part of who we are. There's even research to show that kindness is genetic. And you introduce a lot of factors, right? Lived experience, what we go through in childhood, what we experience as normal. All of those start to weigh into if and how we're choosing kindness or not. So when we think about the impact, it's that we all have it in us, but like anything, like exercise, you can know something's good for you, and yet you don't do it, or you don't do it often. So we think of it like cultivating a muscle, really investing into growing it, shaping it, strengthening it. The more you do it, the more natural it, comes to you, the stronger you are. So I think like anything, it's needing to nurture it and develop it.
So do you think that the social environment, I have to go to not an economic principle, but there's something that I've been dealing with for a while, where in the world of finance, a lot of the masters in business education, the MBAs, are taught bottom line. And bottom line is, how do I make the most profit? And it's almost, they don't take into consideration this factor. So how do you change the structural institutionalization of the bottom line only thinking and change it into something that makes people kinder?
I think we're on the precipice of something completely shifting in how businesses operate, meaning early research so far, both some that we're conducting as well as other existing literature, is showing that all of the factors that feed into bottom line, employee engagement, employee well-being, absenteeism, retention, any of those individual isolated things can all be positively, significantly affected when kindness is at the table of how you lead, how you invest into your culture, into your team. And so when you think about bottom line, probably the best thing you can do for your business is to focus on both internal employee care, well-being, compassion, and doing it in a very action-oriented way. So there's a lot there that I could certainly unpack, but then also thinking about how it translates out to consumers. Should you be a business that's also engaging consumers as part of what feeds your bottom line? I think that 10 years from now, if your company doesn't have kindness in some vein, you can call it something else if you want, but all couched under what we say is a meta value. If you are not a business that's prioritizing that, I simply don't think you will make it. Bottom line has to now start to be thought about as something combined with investing into the care of who your staff is. Bottom line is powered by the people who are making it possible. So great vision, strong leadership, that can only get you so far if you're not investing into the team who is responsible for what that bottom line is.
Well, we've come through, the organizing structures of humanity were tribal in the beginning, and then became religious. Religiosity was the control, and then we moved into the political world, where politics has controlled everything, and then we've lately moved into the economic world, and we at the Dow American Network Foundation and all of the things all the projects that we're working on are all about moving into the era of human kindness. We actually have discussed that, and we've actually written white papers on the fact that we're moving into the era of human kindness. And the reason that we believe you're moving into the era of human kindness is because that is the end result. We think that you go back, tribalism is actually human kindness in a way. It was just a very primitive way of dealing with it, but we're going back to that. But we have the ability to do a lot more because of technology, and we have the ability to transfer ideas, which is what you're doing. My guest is Jaclyn Lindsey, who is the co-founder and CEO of kindness.org, and believes that kindness is humanity's greatest asset. And your work, give me an idea of the scope of where you're working now, in terms of the world's kindness.
Great. Our research has largely been focused across the US and UK to start with, but we can take all the findings from those publics and those people and still develop solutions that go beyond borders. Our Learn Kind curriculum is in more than 30 countries. It is a free social emotional learning curriculum. It is only in English, but we've seen incredible engagement and activation with teachers from around the world. And our workplace programming is also largely focused in the United States. When it comes to this idea of community, social engagement, how we're putting, content out to our audience, they're in more than 190 countries, which is indicative that kindness truly transcends difference, borders, religion, culture, etc. But as far as where we're investing right now, largely domestic, but certainly with a belief that what we're creating can be used anywhere by anyone.
Well, I hope that you can reach out to Mr. Putin and make him a little bit kinder in the world. That would help a lot if he was coming from that side of things. We certainly need human kindness, and we need kindness in the world. And we thank you very much, Jaclyn, for being a proponent of kindness. It goes along very well with what our objectives are here on Route 664, the road to human kindness. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Wanda, thank you for putting that together. Appreciate it. And this is all about human kindness and being good to one another. It's a much healthier way of dealing with things. Thanks again.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I just want to say kudos to you for the nod to tribalism, because the research director that I work with, we've worked together for 5 years on this mission. He is one of the world's leading authorities on evolutionary psychology. And so he is bringing the lens of how did we start? What's the journey we've taken? What is innate? How are we getting back to the root of it all? And I very rarely hear someone understand it through that lens. And so that was just really wonderful that you brought that into this. He would have had a field day getting to engage in that conversation with you. So
well, thank you.
To hear that.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad that we're on the cutting edge and working together to make the world kinder. Thank you again, Jaclyn.
Absolutely. And just one question. I'm a little curious about the group you're working with, or, you said it was focused on the path to human kindness. So is there a place for me to learn more about what you're doing, how you're doing it?
Yes, absolutely. Go to our website, socialsecharity.org, socialsecharity.org. It's SECHARITY. It's like Social Security, just change the U to HA.
Okay. Great.
So you out there, I'm talking to you individually now, you can be kinder. You can do things for yourself, your family. Learn how to do those things. Listen to our digital radio station every day. You can find it at route664.org/radio, route664.org/radio. And we archive all of our interviews there. They'll be replayed on a regular basis. We have a new episode of The Adventures of Charity that airs this Friday at noon, and then again at 3 and 6 p.m. This is Chapter 7, The Lair of the Collector, and a great mix of music that makes you feel good all day. So forget your troubles for a minute or two and join us on Route 664. Also enjoy our special Sunday lineup, beginning with Classy Sunday at 8 a.m., Just Jazz at 11 a.m., and then the soulful sounds of Steve Cole at 2 p.m., route664.org/radio. We'll be with you again, same time, same station next week. Thank you, community newspapers. Thank you, Andre. Take care.